even more responsive and pretty much showed a lot of empathy for a lot of Texans who still find themselves in homes without water, needing a lot of federal assistance. So it was a very good trip.
A lot of the speech was just about the COVID vaccine and kind of the national outlook on things. Do you wish more had been said about Texas and last week's winter storm?
Well, he's been hearing about that all day. We didn't quite know how long he was going to speak today, but I can assure you throughout the day, from the stop first at Transtar, and that was primarily about the winter storm. The governor met with him, privately, and then he came out into the open, and we talked quite a bit about the number of people who are still without still without water, and the number of people who need the financial assistance. So the visit at Transtar was very much about last week, the winter storm. And then, of course, leaving there, went to the food bank and recognizing there are tremendous food insecurities, much of which is related to the storm. And then even with the heartbreaks that the coronavirus have inflicted on a lot of people. So that was at the Houston Food Bank, and that was a very good tour and a very good meeting. And then, of course, now we are here at NRG, and the focus, of course, on the FEMA site, not just here, but the site in vaccination site in Dallas as well as Arlington. So it kind of covered the whole gamut, okay, with all of the different stops and the conversation that took place at each one of those stops.
Mayor, did you ask the president for anything specific? Are there any needs that Houston City has right now?
Well, basically, again, we talked about the lack of supplies, plumbing supplies, materials, licensed plumbers. We also indicated, people are wanting they're needing the help, even though he signed the disaster declaration. It's the speed in which those dollars can flow, those grant dollars, the small business loans. The heads of FEMA were here, and they're already pushing dollars out to people, not only in the city of Houston, Harris County, but throughout the state. So that's good news. And so he did indicate about making sure that FEMA move as quickly as possible to meet people's immediate needs as soon as possible.
Mayor, as far as those immediate needs are concerned, today it was announced that FEMA has spent some $9 million on the individual assistance
Yes.
going directly to people statewide. What do you say to those Houstonians who are in primarily apartment complexes? A lot of them don't have that water, in terms of the trickle down of help getting to them and the timeline that's uncertain.
And what I would say to them, we're trying to approach it on multiple levels. Of course, with the assistance that's coming from FEMA is one way of getting assistance. And for some who are not a part of that $9 million, but hopefully more dollars will be pushed out as quickly as possible. The other is the relief fund that the city and the county have put together, the Greater Houston Relief Fund. In fact, there was a board meeting, I believe, this morning on the relief fund. And the goal is to start pushing dollars out from the relief fund, if not today, as of Monday. So dollars will start to flow. And we're working in collaboration with the Greater Houston Community Foundation as well as with United Way. So there are multiple ways. And then there are different organizations that are in town, nonprofits, that I've talked to, Samaritan, I can't think of the full name, but they're in town right now and they're assisting people in terms of repairing their pipes and repairing their homes. So there are multiple nonprofits that are in the city. You've got the relief fund that is intended to provide assistance, financial assistance, sooner rather than later. And then you've got the monies coming from FEMA. So there are multiple ways that people can get assistance.
About power, Mr. Mayor, the president has said that he would not criticize the state's power system, its own grid. What are your thoughts on the conversation that's been had today as far as those questions are concerned? What happens next with how we handle power here in the state of Texas?
Well, that's
Should there be more federal input?
Well, I think there needs to be input not only from the federal level, but of course, the state is doing this review. I listened to a lot of those hearings that took place on yesterday. I thought there were some substantive hearings that are taking place in the legislative process. But there needs to be some conversations from multiple levels. The reality is that the system did fail. Okay, it did fail. And it was system-wide state failure. And much of what took place last week was foreseeable and preventable. Nothing that took place last week was of any surprise. We knew that there was not enough reserves to prevent blackouts. We knew that in the state of Texas you have a closed grid. Okay, ERCOT provides power to 90% of the geographical area of Texas. We knew it's a closed grid, and if you don't have reserve power, and because the grid is closed, you can't pull power from the west or from the east. Those are things we knew, and we knew that it's a market-driven system, which means that when the demand exceeds the supply, the power generators are able to charge exponentially more, from a few thousand per megawatt to up to 9,000. All of those things we knew. And we knew that the system was not weatherized. But what people were betting on is that the system that's designed for summer heat would not need to be designed and weatherized for a major winter storm. And they guessed wrong, and they missed. And a lot of people have suffered.
Real quick, what was your main message for the president?
Is that we need a partner all the way through, a good partner. And that I'm very sensitive to people who don't have the insurance and don't have the financial means, and really needing those federal dollars sooner rather than later. People who can't afford to leave their homes because they don't have running water because the pipes have burst, they can't afford to go to a hotel. And so we're doing as much as we can locally, but we really do need a federal partner. And he was very empathetic to it, and they have already done some very important things, and we wanted to thank him for the support that the state of Texas.
Thank you, guys.